Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Drug King, a Korean crime drama from 2018 that stars Kang-ho Song. Now this is set in South Korea during the 1970s. A man builds an empire as a drug smuggler in the Busan underworld, while a public prosecutor attempts to take him down. That's about as generic of a premise that you could possibly think of. But I just recently covered another generic-sounding film, The Spy Gone North, that turned out to be far more interesting and dramatically impactful than one might expect going into it. So maybe The Drug King can accomplish a similar feat. Or maybe it's just boring to watch. So let's get the obvious positives out of the way first. You got Kang-ho Song is good as usual. He tries to infuse as much energy into the film that he possibly can, and I appreciated his performance in this. Also, the production values are good because it feels like you're transported back to the 1970s. Of course, this is not much of a surprise nowadays because the Korean film industry has a history of impressive period pieces, both on the big screen and on television. And it's very difficult to have production values save a film in and of themselves. There has to be some other stuff here to hold our interest. Unfortunately, The Drug King has a very weak script that fails to compensate for its generic premise. The big problems that I had with this film were the weak character development and the fact that the story jumps around too much. There were many scenes in this movie that feel too short, almost abridged. Nothing lasts long enough to make much of an impression on the viewer. So, for example, our protagonist eventually gets his crew of criminals together. There's a scene, maybe about 30 minutes in, where everyone gets together and have a meeting. But the scene ends before even the meeting begins, before it even starts. So I was expecting some interaction and time between all these guys so I could get a good feel for their characters, but never really happened. Basically Kang-ho Song shows up, makes some small talk, and then the scene ends as soon as he sits down to start the meeting. So I did not like that. Here's a better example, though, that drives home the point that I'm attempting to make here. No big spoilers, because you could, the stuff I'm talking about, you could infer from the trailer alone. Doonabe shows up about an hour into this movie, okay? They set her up as being this really important character. Apparently it's really difficult to get in close with this woman. But if you can win her over, she has powerful connections that could be very beneficial. So I was expecting, with that setup, I was expecting some significant time between Kang-ho Song and Doonabe because he has to get close to her if he wants to take his drug operation to the next level and build those relationships. The filmmakers apparently had other plans because he accomplishes this task in 30 seconds. Quite literally, they're partners within a matter of seconds. It's ridiculous. And to make matters worse, the film does a really bad job of clarifying and developing their actual relationship in the film. How romantically involved are they? I don't know. Based on what is shown and inferenced in the film itself, I have no idea how the relationship works. And I certainly have no idea why she decided to help this guy in the first place. I just don't get it at all. And do you know why I have no idea? Because Doonabe has a grand total of about 10 minutes of screen time in the entire film. Maybe a little more. I wasn't counting minutes, but it's not much. So we have a fantastic actress in a thankless role with absolutely nothing to work with. Now, I realized this near the midpoint of the movie, and it was more difficult to sit through the second half of this movie because at that point, I knew what kind of film that I was dealing with. You know what I mean? But I was already halfway through, so you may as well finish it. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would they have her character in the film if they weren't even going to bother developing her or giving her anything to do? She really doesn't do much in this. Well, I have the same question about a number of characters in this film because there are a lot of wafer-thin people walking around in The Drug King. Everyone just kind of pops in and out of the story with reckless abandon, and almost none of them make an impression because the script really has no idea how to make them compelling. It just kind of goes through the motions. Kang-ho Song will go somewhere and chat with someone. and then he'll go somewhere else, chat with someone else. And maybe he has a very brief like run-in with a criminal or a government agent or something. But then he goes right back to engaging in uninteresting, plot-progressing dialogue with other wafer-thin characters. You know what I mean? It just feels like it's treading water the whole time. And of course, we need to talk about the runtime of a Korean movie again. This movie is 2 hours and 19 minutes long. Why? Why is it that long? The story and the characters are way too generic and simplistic to justify that length. I mean, if you want to make a film this generic, cut it down to 90 minutes and give me a bunch of action and thrills to enjoy. Instead, the Drug King tries to be this like long, epic crime drama, but fails miserably at actually being dramatic about it. And that's a problem. You know what I mean? Like I said, the acting in this film outside of the Kang-ho Song is all good. There's really not any bad performances in this. Production values are solid. But, I was really trying to think about something truly memorable about this movie, and nothing really stands out. It's just so forgettable. It's just so forgettable. I can't recommend this. It is currently available on Netflix streaming in the United States, if you're curious. And as always, we'll see you next time.